one of the ways that we need to combat that is by realizing that any time that somebody pays us in exchange for a product or a service, we have a business. And it was actually my husband who one day said to me, if this is a business, you need to treat it like a business. And that was one of the launch points that you'll hear as we kind of go here. But that was one of the launch points that actually got me even looking at doing professional development, realizing that this is a business. And if I want to be taken seriously, then I need to take it seriously as well.
You're listening to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast from Top Music. Tune in weekly as we interview music teachers and experts from around the world to explore creative activities and ideas that build learning connections in students. Our integrated music teaching approach will deepen your students' understanding of musical concepts, engage them in critical thinking, improve their reading and performance, foster their curiosity, and prepare them for a lifetime of music making. It's Tim Topham here. Welcome back to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast from TopMusicPro. I hope you are having a great week and have a nice weekend planned ahead. It's always so much fun connecting with all of you guys on the podcast. I've been doing this, as most of you know, for now 6 years or something, and it is always a highlight of the week. So much fun to put these together, and particularly fun when you get to interview one of our members, which I get to do today, to talk about just how far she's come with the guidance and support that we've been able to offer her inside TopMusicPro. Rachel, who we'll meet in a moment, was literally about to throw in the towel and quit teaching forever before she took up a free trial with us and then got completely hooked. And you'll hear the story now of where she's at right now. And it's just an absolutely remarkable story. It's one of the most exciting and fulfilling, I guess, member spotlights that I've ever shared with you guys. So I'm really excited to do that today. This is episode number 307. And I think you're going to get a real buzz from the episode. So let me introduce you to Rachel. So she's a wife, a mother of three, and music studio owner. And she loves a good challenge, she says. Though officially Canadian, she was born and raised in the United States, where she received 20 years of piano training and spent the first 7 years of her private piano teaching career. After marrying her Canadian husband in 2013, Rachel moved to Canada in 2019, opened the Three Sisters Music Studio in Cochrane, Alberta. Rachel's motivation for teaching comes from a passion to see others learn to express their emotions in a healthy and safe way through music. She does this through her signature blend of fun, creativity, and a dash of chaos. Her goal is to see every student move through life equipped with the tools needed to process the world around them, empowered to impact others, and instilled with a never-ending love of music. If you've ever wanted to draw up a studio philosophy or vision, then have a listen back to that one again at some stage in the future to give you some inspiration, because that is truly inspiring. Well, welcome to the show, Rachel. So great to see you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be a part of this.
Well, you've only been a Top Music Pro member for 3 months. You joined us on a free trial in mid-June and have absolutely turned your studio and life around since you joined. So I can't wait to dive into the whole story a little bit more. But before we start, can you let our listeners know a little bit about your studio, where you're based, and kind of ages and things that you teach right now?
Absolutely. So I'm based out of Cochrane, Alberta, Canada, and my husband is a carpenter, and so he custom built a studio in our basement when he finished.
Oh, lucky you.
Yes. So I have a space right in my house, and I currently actually have sitting at 32 students that have signed up with me.
That's more than even when we last spoke. That's amazing. It was 22 about 2 weeks ago.
I know. No, to be fair, 7 of those are assigned to a second teacher that I've hired, but they are still under my
Still,
watch.
Yeah, they've come through your watch. Amazing.
Yeah. They range in age from 2.5 up until about 16 years of age. And 6 of those are returning students from the past. Yeah. So most are going to be beginners this year. And then it kind of ranges up to early intermediate from the students that I had last year. Those would be in the early intermediate range. And I think about 6 of them are children with special needs, which is also due to you guys giving me confidence. So
Wow,
for that.
so amazing. Well, if it's okay, I'd like to read out the post that you left in our member forums, which precipitated this conversation. I said, Rachel, we have to have you on the show to talk about this in more detail. So, and this is a transformation that's happened in 2 to 3 months. So you've now, listeners, you've now heard Rachel. You can tell how lively and bubbly and passionate and excited she is for the new school year. But just wait to hear what it was like not very long ago. And she's got a massive smile on her face right now too, by the way. So let's go back. This is what Rachel shared with us. She said, last spring, I ended my 10th year of teaching, feeling burnt out and hating every minute of teaching. I loved my students, but I hated their lessons. 3 years ago, I opened a new studio after making an international move. Since I was not accustomed to the exam system, nor did I want to be involved with it, I was told I was not a serious teacher. For the last 3 years, I've been fighting to prove myself and everyone around me that I'm a serious teacher, and as a result, it was killing my teaching. I didn't feel I was allowed to be creative or act on all the crazy ideas I had in my head because, let's be real, they were a bit crazy and not serious, in inverted commas. In a last-ditched effort to keep from closing my studio forever, this is serious stuff, I became a TopMusicPro member in June and started dabbling in a course on group lessons. I became straight up addicted to the courses and podcasts, etc., and found myself stripping down my entire studio structure and rebuilding from the ground up. Over the last few months, I've come to realize that I'm a very capable teacher who has a unique skill of creativity and an out-of-the-box mentality. I'm one of the only teachers in my town that works outside of the exam system and follows a modern teaching philosophy. I've got a corner on the piano teaching market that I never realized, and the potential to grow and meet my dreams is now tangible. So in 3 weeks, I'll begin, which must be now-ish, right? I'll begin my 11th year of teaching. I initially had planned to go slow and try one group lesson, but the demand was so high, I couldn't say no. I left spring of 2022 with 8 students, and I'm barreling into fall of 2022 with 28, now 30, what was it? 35?
32.
32.
Yep.
And the requests keep coming. I've hired a second teacher to teach private and mobile lessons so that I can focus on doing what I love and mainly teaching the group lessons. I've increased my prices. I've hired a graphic designer to create a logo, and I'm putting in place a plan to open my own external music school in 5 years. We'll talk about that goal shortly as well. When I let myself stop and think about it all, I start getting scared out of my boots, but I keep telling myself that this is me and I have got this, and we are right behind you, Rachel. I finally found my people. That was one of the real comments that stood out to me. You finally found your people and the freedom to embrace your own uniqueness. Huge success. Thanks to Tim and the team and the community for allowing me, for being a part of that. So, wow, like this blew, I shared this with my whole team, and we were just all so blown away. And I'm sure people listening will be as well. So I was like, where do we actually start this conversation? So firstly, where did you move your studio from and to?
Yes. So I was born and raised in the US, in Iowa, and I taught lessons there for more like a hobby. If I needed extra cash, that would be where I would kind of move to, is just teaching some lessons on the side. In 2015, I moved to Alberta, and I took some time from teaching. I took off some time so I could work a real job. So I wasn't teaching during that time, but I was doing that until my first daughter was born. And then when I returned from mat leave in 2019, that's when I actually opened a studio in Cochrane here at that time. And the intent was just to kind of offset the income that I had lost from becoming a stay-at-home mom. And I never felt like it was a feasible business to keep going with. But I did notice that even from the get-go, I constantly had a massive waiting list every year that I was turning down students, or I had the freedom to be like, well, I don't want to teach you, so find a different teacher and I'll take somebody else.
It's a good position to be in.
Yes. So that was where I moved from. I moved from the States to Canada. And initially, being from the States, we didn't have much of an exam system at all. I was moving from no exam system to a country that is very heavily immersed in an exam or conservatory system.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the Commonwealth countries. So Australia is one of those as well. Canada, UK, obviously, very, very much comes from an exam tradition. So I know that a lot of the teachers I talk to in America, they're a bit surprised. They don't quite understand how it all works. So I imagine that was a bit of a shock to the system. I want to pick up on something you said about the real job, and you did that in inverted commas. But it's a real thing, and it's one of the new missions that I have here at Top Music is to try and help us as a profession get to a position where we don't have to convince people of the merits of what we're doing, that we're worthwhile, that it's not just babysitting and it is a real job. Because I really feel for many teachers who have this sense that what they're doing isn't real, that they should go and get a real job. It's just an awful feeling, isn't it?
It is. And I think that one of the ways that we need to combat that is by realizing that any time that somebody pays us in exchange for a product or a service, we have a business. And it was actually my husband who one day said to me, if this is a business, you need to treat it like a business. And that was one of the launch points that you'll hear as we kind of go here. But that was one of the launch points that actually got me even looking at doing professional development, realizing that this is a business. And if I want to be taken seriously, then I need to take it seriously as well.
Yeah. So take us back to just before you joined us. Had you followed Top Music for a while? A lot of people listen to lots of podcasts and read lots of blogs before they join us.
I did. Initially, I had come across you guys when I first opened my studio back in 2019. So my studio in Canada. And I listened to you for a bit, not religiously, but a little bit. And then COVID hit. And I think I just kind of went into a trying to save myself mode. And I forgot about the podcast and I hadn't listened to it. And then when I was coming back into needing something to hang on to, trying to look for some lifeline, I remembered the podcast and I remembered that I had enjoyed listening to it. So I tried finding you and you had totally changed. You rebranded and changed your name. So I eventually found you. But in the process of all of that, I had been, as I was listening to the podcast, then I heard you mention that there was more behind the scenes that I could access courses and things. And so I thought, well, it's worth a shot. Can't get any worse than where I'm at.
Oh, you poor thing.
So that was when I took a look at what you had and I signed up for the free trial. And I honestly was only doing it to take like one course. I thought maybe I could power through one course if I did it really quickly during that free trial. But it didn't really turn out to be that way. Now I'm heavily addicted to TopMusicPro.
It's wonderful to hear. I'm glad that the courses have been so engaging and so helpful for you. I mean, it's actually kind of easy in some ways to join a membership and use it like Netflix as entertainment or edutainment, just watch. But you've actually gone and done the thing. And that's what's most important, to actually take action on the things that you're learning. So when you look back those 4 to 6 months ago, what was the biggest contributor to the feelings of sadness and wanting to quit, do you think?
Well, I felt like a fraud. I felt like I didn't belong. And I felt as though I should not be charging for the services that I was offering because I was not, quote, a serious teacher. And a friend of mine, about the time that I started teaching, a friend of mine had told me that she had some friends who were looking for a piano teacher and her personal piano teacher was full. And so she had asked me if I was taking students. I told her that I was, and she said that she would chat with them. So when I followed up to see how these friends, if they were interested, she said, well, they are looking for somebody who will take piano seriously because you're not an exam teacher. You're not interested in getting into the conservatory system. I was also pregnant at that time and planning to take 6 weeks off to have a baby in the middle of the year. And because of all of that, you're not a serious teacher. And so they're looking for something different. And that really hurt me. And that was where I focused for all of those 3 years leading up to this, was just feeling like I'm not serious. I'm a fraud. I'm a hobbyist. I shouldn't actually be charging for what I'm doing. And I felt inappropriate. I felt unprofessional. If I did try to act out on any of the things that were creative inside of me, I felt like that was something wrong, that somehow people wouldn't want to be with me. And my students were starting to feel that burnout. They were being hindered in their creativity. And as a result, they were burning out, which was making my life harder. So that is really where the crunch came, of just feeling like, what am I doing? And what is the point of this? I don't enjoy this.
Oh, wow. I just wanted to go back there and give you a big hug and say it's okay. I'm so glad you've been able to find, I understand now better the phrase you use, you found your tribe. You found a group of people who think and believe the same things as you. And I'm so glad that you did, because really, in so many ways, and you can look at this now and understand it, you're the teacher that is going to keep those kids potentially engaged in music for their whole life, which is, of course, our goal. Potentially more so than the teachers who stick to the rigid curriculum, exams and performances. So I'm so sorry that you went through that and started to believe what people were saying. And I totally understand why. I also think it's instructive when we talk about. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's instructive to think about one of the other real challenges we have as teachers when people question our professionalism and our career choice is that we are one of those few people who have been actually engaged in music for all of our life. Most of us start at age, 4 to 8 or something like that. We've started playing and learning music, and now we've chosen to make it our career. It's not like we picked it up at university and we've been doing it for 2 years and now people are saying you're a bit of a fraud or you're not very good. It's our life's passion for most of us. It makes it hurt even more, I think.
I would agree with that completely. It's a part of who we are at our core. So yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Well, I'm so glad that, yes, you've been able to rethink this and realize that is only one very small, narrow-minded view of certain people. That's wonderful. So one thing that you said that you did, I want to pick up on, was you said you stripped down your entire studio structure and rebuilt from the ground up. So I wanted to know, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it's been a whirlwind of a little bit here. Like you were mentioning, we do have a tendency to get onto TopMusicPro and binge watch like Netflix. And you said at the very beginning, don't do that. And I just looked at it and I was like, I can't help it. This is just what's going to happen. I was so hungry for help. And I finally found that help. And so I didn't realize there were other people out there like me. And I started the group lesson course by Deborah Perez, I think is how you say it. My mindset was more money, less time. I don't want to be teaching any more than I absolutely have to because I hate it. And by the end of the course, I was just blown away by the benefits of the teaching and the ideas that were presented for creatively teaching. So then I moved on and it all just kind of snowballed. And then I started listening to the podcast with an ear that was a little bit more educated, and I knew what I was looking for. And it gave me maybe a more teachable aspect too. And I essentially started to look at everything on the ground floor as I was listening and go back to, why am I even teaching? what do I love about teaching? And then how am I gifted to teach in a way that will cause these skills to flourish? And so that was kind of the ground floor, but I still wasn't confident because I'm American. I'm American through and through. And so if I try to take an American way of doing something and I throw it into a Canadian culture, it does not work well at all. So I still wasn't real confident in what I wanted to do. And then I listened to podcast. It was number 153 with Linda Polzer, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And she started verbalizing ideas that I honestly was sitting there thinking, she took my ideas. She stole my ideas. How did she find out about them? Because they were mine. But she's an hour away from me and they're working for her. And so when I realized that they were working for her in Canada, it meant that all my crazy was going to work too. And that's when I finally felt that freedom to just embrace things and fly. So I changed the curriculum that I was using to Piano Safari. I changed my teaching style to group and hybrid lessons with the remaining private students that I have. They'll be in hybrid. And then anybody new is group. I've added in ear and eye training and whole body, getting people off the bench instead of just sitting on the bench the whole time. I went through my studio policy and stripped out anything that sounded miserable to me. Like I expect this many hours of practice or expectations of perfection. And I got rid of all of those and changed. Now I'm going to be sending home challenges with my students that are going to engage their parents, and their parents don't have a choice. And I've changed my recitals. I hate recitals. I hate them because everybody just sits there and stares at you. So to turn them into something fun that my students want to do and I want to do and they don't dread. So those are going to look different. Christmas Coffee House, that was my idea from the start. I'm just calling it, Linda. That was my idea. I don't know how she got it, but that was mine. And then I had already planned to increase my prices for the year, but now I actually had the confidence to do it. I didn't feel like I shouldn't be doing it. I am implementing lesson planning, which I've never done before. I bought 2 new pianos. That was a perk and that was fun. I now have 4 pianos shoved into this tiny little studio. But I bought 2 new pianos so that I can do ensemble work with my kids that I've never been able to do. For the first 10 weeks, all my new students, I'm stripping away the books and I'm going with your no book beginner program. I brought in a new teacher to teach some of the private students that were coming on. I changed everything that was solitary about piano, and I tried to figure out how I could make this a studio that was a community and a family. And that actually changed my name as well. I had been a Solfege Music Studio. People have no idea what solfege is outside of the music world. So I changed it to 3 Sisters Music Studio because I have 3 little girls who are 3 sisters. We also have a mountain range here named 3 Sisters. And I wanted people who came in to feel like they belonged, like they were a part of my family. But not only that, I wanted to create a team mentality. So all of my kids are going to be working on an art piece together this year that will be framed in my studio at the end of the year. I bought a 5.5-foot moose behind me here that your listeners can't see, but he's adorable. And he's going to travel around the studio. And as each kid takes him home and gets to write about a practice journey or adventure with music that he went on, they're going to create a book about his life together. I'm going to have older students mentoring younger students. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I have significantly increased my communication with parents. It's another thing that I've done. So there are going to be times where I'm planning for them to actually be educated as well, so that they're not on the outskirts texting me saying, I don't understand eighth notes. How am I supposed to do this? And I had the best open house kickoff. I've never done an open house before. But on Monday night, so just a couple days ago, I had an open house. I invited all of my students, old and new. I brought them in. I had games set up. My whole house turned into this insane, ridiculous place full of like 50 people. But I had games spread throughout the whole place. And I had a banner where they could write why they love music. And I had a selfie wall, and I had a jam session rhythm band of all my rhythm instruments sitting out. And they got to submit names for the moose, and I'm going to choose his name based off of their submissions. So that's still kind of kicking around. It hasn't been chosen yet. But yes, that was so much fun. And I hired a graphic designer so that I could get a professional image moving forward. And then the last thing that I've done is I went back on social media. I had taken a hiatus from that for a year, and it's like pulling teeth, but I'm back on social media for the sake of the students. So those are just a few of the things that I have stripped down and changed.
I'm blown away, as I think all our listeners will be. Could you have imagined this version of you 3 months ago?
Absolutely not. No, because I thought that there was one thing to teach, and maybe we all use different curriculums and had a different way of doing things, but I never would have thought that I could teach something I love in a way that I love. And so I never would have envisioned this much excitement and passion. And I'll tell you, I feel so bad for my husband because he is stuck in this house with me, and this excitement is just bubbling out all day long. So yeah, I start talking, I've got about a 5-second window, and his eyes glazed over. Just like,
he must have seen,
shut up.
he must have seen a massive change in you, generally.
Yeah, I would say probably in general, because there's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders.
Yeah,
so
I can feel it.
Yeah, I would say he's seen a huge difference.
So let's unpack just a couple of the things that you said there. Firstly, the podcast which triggered some of these ideas was episode number 153. And I was just having a look back at that. And so that was it was called Recital and Event Ideas to Build Community with Linda Polzer, as you said. So how she uses group lessons, the role of parents, the piano Olympics she does, the games she uses, and the Christmas coffee house idea that you came up with. Why Linda decided to host a parents' dessert date night this year. So these events are obviously hugely important for community building, and your open house as well. What was the goal of the open house?
Well, if you have a poor little student who comes to your front door and meets a stranger for the first time, who their parents just shove them in the door with, and then this random stranger takes them into their basement, that's just not like the most child-friendly situation. So to have these kids in with their parents, to see the atmosphere that was here, to be able to play around a little bit, to meet me in a very non-intimidating situation. Like, there's nothing less intimidating than a teacher who has a scoop of chocolate ice cream in her hand. There was that aspect of it. And for me to be able to field questions from the parents and let them see my curriculum, let them see who I am. And I had parents going home saying, I've never been to an open house before, but I'm going to tell my friends.
So marketing.
What does that do for me? Yes.
Yes.
So there were a lot of aspects to it, but the main reason was I just wanted to get that uncomfortable, hi, I'm Rachel, please trust me so that I can take you into my basement. I wanted to get
and sit you in front of this instrument and force you to play something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted them
Great idea.
Yeah, to just feel safe.
I really like it. The other thing that you mentioned earlier on was performances, how you really hated the recital. And I know there's a lot of parents out there who would be like, oh, please, can we quit the recitals or do something different? Because they just go on, and you're watching 99% of the time you're watching another kid play, not yours, and things like that. So have you got any ideas of how you're going to reimagine this?
well, yeah, I'm taking all of Linda's ideas. So
What are
I've
some
got
of the top ones?
the Christmas coffee house is coming up in December. That's already booked.
So how does that
And
work?
then so the Christmas coffee house, they're going to be coming into my home. I'm going to have it set up where they have muffins and they'll have coffee. The parents will be able to just mingle and talk. And the students will be playing the background music so that it takes all of that pressure off of them. And I think that there's going to be some kinks that I'm going to need to kind of iron out in making sure that the parents don't just hyper focus on the kids, but I want to change it so that this is an opportunity for the children to get a feel for performing without 100 pairs of eyes just sitting there staring at them. Being able to be a part of something fun.
Yeah, it reminds me of those moments at the ends of the formal recitals when the parents are all talking and having coffee or whatever, and the kids start playing around on the piano themselves. That's the moment that you want to capture. And that's when they have the most fun and they show off to each other and they play things together. And so you've gone, how do I capture that element of the recital but still make it a performance opportunity? I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think the other thing I've heard of people doing is that kind of pizza party. So what do the kids want? Well, that pizza will get them to do anything pretty much, I think. As a parent, I've learned. As long as there's a hand washing process between the pizza and the piano, we're okay. We're all good. But that idea of, what will take the pressure off? How do we get the piano off the stage and into the general surround so everyone's on the same level? And some of the best events I've seen at schools are where the instruments are played on the floor and parents are at tables and they bring food and drink and they're just nibbling and chatting, and then someone's playing something. I was like you. I never really enjoyed performing. In fact, I hid under chairs and all sorts of things when I was younger. It makes me quite embarrassed. My parents remind me quite often of how scared I was to perform. Oh, dear. Anyway, I want to find out, how long did all of this take you? I mean, you worked pretty quickly to completely rebuild things. And I mean, you're a mother of 3 children. You've got a family. Did you just take a few weeks off to just sort all this out?
Well, I take the summer off. I take off from June to September, mid-June to September. So that's been my focus, has been after the kids go to bed, I just sit down and I plow through things. And so it's been a lot of hours, but it's been fun. It's been fun work. So it doesn't feel like work, I guess. But yeah, it's been, I don't know, it's probably been about
a couple of months.
Weeks.
Yeah. Okay. 2 or 3 months. Yeah. All right. The other thing that I really want to pick up on is the marketing. So you've very cleverly diversified yourself, or differentiated, as the marketers might call it, which is really important for music teachers, particularly in crowded markets. And I'll often have teachers ask me, how do I get more students when so-and-so down the road is charging half the price and, there's so many teachers in my town? Well, the answer is to do what you're doing and differentiate yourself. So let's talk about the marketing, because it's still bringing in new students. So you've mentioned the open house. Everyone's talking about that. What other things have you done? What other strategies have you done for marketing?
I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be particularly helpful on this, but I honestly...
Or is just the bubbly fun just pouring out of your house to the whole community and people just know to come?
It could be. I don't know. What I've been doing so far has really just been Facebook. I've just I go on Canva and I make up a little ad and I just throw it onto whatever Facebook group. So my community in my specific town community. And I threw it on there. I do create a real sense of urgency. And when it first started, I had only intended to take one group class, and it was going to be 4 students. So I never have availability. So when I put that out there, I said, this is a very rare opportunity for you to join my studio. If you want in, you need to get in now, because these spots will fill up fast. And bang, they were full within a day.
Wow.
But as I've gone, I I just opened up a preschool class because I just can't stop. And so I'm taking preschoolers this year. And again, I said, I have one spot and they don't need to know that the other 2 spots are taken by my own children, but to just say, I've got one spot that's available. If you want it, jump on it now. So there's a real sense of urgency that I've put out there. When they contact me, I get them my personal cell phone number almost immediately. I want them contacting me and calling me. I want to get them off of messaging as quickly as I can, because when they hear this kind of crazy, it either makes them go somewhere else or they just can't help it.
They either run a mile or they love it.
Yes, that's exactly right. They know real quick whether they belong in this studio or not. So I've been telling people very upfront, I'm an out of the box teacher. I am focused on empowering students to express themselves in a healthy and safe way. And so I do that with fun. And I am very open about that right from the get-go. One of the parents at the open house said the reason she went with me was because most of the teachers that she had contacted seemed like they were just unsure. Maybe they would take her student. They weren't super excited about it. I wanted her student. And so she went with me. So I think we have that power to give off an attitude of, yeah, you're not really that important to me. And when we do that, it will they'll feel it and they will shut down. So I have been, I think my bubbly personality does help with that a bit, but there's so many things that can be done for marketing down the road. I can go knocking door to door or just putting out flyers. With my moose, I'm actually very excited about this moose because I'm going to create a poll on Facebook of all of their name suggestions. And then I'm going to get people to vote on it. And I'm going to get the parents to send out that poll so that their friends are voting on it. So my name is going to be flying and they're going to be seeing, wow, this is fun. She does these cool things. And hopefully that will be bringing in some attention as well. So there's so much that can be done, but as to how to get students quickly, I don't know. All I know is that I put out the ads and they just came and I couldn't stop them.
on Facebook, you said the town community. Was it a page or is there a group for your community?
I guess it would probably be a group for my specific community within.
And that's where you were able to post, and they were okay with the business post. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm in a community for my local. We have sort of state government and then local area councils, and our council has a group. That would be one place that you would put that out. So looking, I guess for teachers listening, looking around online and particularly Facebook, I guess at the moment, I mean Facebook's having a bit of a interesting time in people's minds at the moment, but groups are still popular. And so if you can find a group in your local area that you can post something like Rachel's done, fantastic. And that urgency, I think that was really crucial too. That sense of urgency or scarcity. We've got 2 places and it's going to fill fast. So you need to come and contact me right now. One thing as an aside, I'm almost worried for you in some ways, Rachel, that you don't burn yourself out in this process.
I know.
Is that something that's happened to you before?
Well, it's never been to this extent. I've never been like this high and excited and having things go really well. But I could see burnout happening. And I also, I'm slightly worried. I was just... I didn't expect to grow at the rate that I did. And I wanted just that one group so that I could wrinkle out my mistakes on these 4 poor little children rather than on 32 of them. So there is an aspect that I am quite nervous and I don't really know next steps past this year. But I also have come to a place now where as you've probably seen on my courses and things, I've taken a step back and I'm not taking courses all the time every day now because I realized I have way too much information in my head. And now is the time to put my feet on the ground and actually start acting out and putting this into practice. But one of the things that I love about Top Music Pro is that there's always a course for that. So like I think back to Apple, they had an iPhone slogan in 2009 or something along those lines that it was like, there's an app for that. If you need something, there's an app for that. And as I've been looking at what's next, how do I keep students engaged? How do I make sure that how do I go about hiring another teacher? How do I make sure that I build a good website? How do I you name it, anything I put in there, there's a course for that. So I know that I have a team behind me and I've got the training at my fingertips that's actually going to help me. And so I don't think that I'll get burnt out because I have this road and it's full of things that are just going to supercharge me as I get tired and as I get discouraged. There's just something else that's just going to keep me going further.
Plus the community of people to cheer you along from the sidelines as well. I'm interested in that hiring of another teacher, actually. Can we talk about that for a moment? Because that's a cool step that you took. So how did you go about finding that teacher?
Well, that was another just kind of random event that exploded all at the same time. So a university student who was a friend of mine had decided that she wanted to teach for the first year. And so she knew that I was teaching. And so she came and asked me, how do I go about doing this? What are some of your tips? And so forth. I talked to her for about an hour and gave her all of my tips and tricks. And my husband came to me and said, so what's she going to pay you for that? And I said, well, nothing. I'm helping out another teacher. And he said, Rachel, if this is a business, treat it like a business. So he threw out the idea of me taking a flat rate or a commission off of her students in exchange for a year of mentoring and teaching. And I didn't think she would go for it, but I threw it at her and she jumped for it. So I brought on her students. I advertised for her. She's using my name and my curriculum. We lesson plan together, and each month we get together and we'll be doing a training of sorts. I'm helping her see what marketing looks like. She was here for my open house, obviously to meet her own students, but to also help with the behind the scenes and see how things work. So technically she's only agreed to be with me for a year, but I have every intention of keeping her longer than that. And I want to bring on more down the road. But I don't know what I'm doing. So I'll have to figure that out later. But for right now, that's how I got her. And that's our plan for this year.
I really like your partner or husband. That it's keeping you accountable and honest and really making you think like a business person. Because we are, because we're so giving, teachers are just giving people. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Not all teachers. Some teachers are very cagey and very closed door. But most of the teachers that are listening to this that are involved in Top Music and our sort of wider community are all very giving teachers. But we almost give too much sometimes. And so I think that was a great move. So so you're not paying her by the hour as such. You're taking a commission. Is that right?
I am, yeah. So each of her lessons, so when she had been teaching, she had been teaching kind of like as a side gig hobby, just a couple of students, and they were taking advantage of her. Just
back to that hobby mentality again, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I said to her, the prices you're charging are ridiculous. You need to up that by at least $20 an hour. And then add in, she was doing mobile lessons and not getting paid for her time. So she now is getting paid additional for her gas and those types of things. But we upped her prices significantly so that she was already getting an increase in income. And then I take $10 an hour off of that. So for every hour that she teaches, I take $10. And it's not a huge amount, but it's something that it's passive income to a degree for me. But yeah, I'm taking just a flat rate. You could do it any way. You could take, 15% or 10% or whatever, but that's how we're working it.
Yeah. Or there's other people who will employ that teacher or contract them to do it, so they become a contract. So there's lots of different models. That's why I was quite interested in that as the model that you chose. I'm really interested to find out more about these kinds of the different ways people hire teachers, because that's a question we get asked all the time is, my goodness, my waiting list is overflowing and people are on there for a year. I mean, if anyone's on a waiting list for longer than about 3 months, they're likely to go elsewhere. So finding another teacher can be a hugely successful way to solve that problem. All right, I'm going to wrap things up, but I did want to ask you about your 5-year plan, which sounds amazing, given where your head was 3 months ago. What do you see for Three Sisters in 5 years?
So I would really love to see it be an external school, so not in my basement anymore. We're working toward getting an actual physical space outside of my home. I would like to bring on teachers of all different disciplines so that I can teach group piano, but I could have a conservatory teacher on my staff if I wanted to, or I could even have a guitar teacher, or I could have a strings teacher. I could bring in other teachers to be able to service the entire community, a totally different level. And so that's where my long-term goal is. There's a lot more details that I need to iron out with that. But there's a course for that. So.
that's the course on systems and software and things like that will become more and more important as you grow. Rachel, what a fantastic story, and what a great vision for the future. And I have no doubt, having spent some time with you today, that you'll achieve that. I think it's wonderful, and I'm so glad that we'll be along for the ride. And to all the listeners out there, if you'd like to experience this kind of transition and growth that Rachel has experienced in the last few months, and you can follow in her footsteps and join us on a free 14-day trial. It's exactly how Rachel began with us before she got addicted. And you can do that over at topmusic.co/free trial. That's all one word, free trial. Go and check it out. Come and join us, and you can connect with Rachel herself and ask more questions if you'd like to in our forums. Thank you so much for sharing your story today, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, if that wasn't an inspiring story, I'm not sure what was. I really do hope that you enjoyed hearing just how far Rachel's come, and that you too, if you haven't already joined us inside Top Music Pro, will consider taking up a free trial just like Rachel did. It could be the thing that really takes your teaching to a new level or saves you from feeling like a failure and dropping out of teaching altogether. As I mentioned just before, the studio trial sign up is over at topmusic.co/free trial. That's all one word. Now, just before we wrap up, I wanted to let you know that over on the Guitar Podcast this week, we're up to episode number 32, and it's called How to Become an In-Demand Session Guitarist, Gigging Musician, and Music Producer with Michael Flanders. And this is an episode that could be useful to anyone, really, looking to do session music work or gigging music or becoming a music producer on any instrument, really. So go and check that out now. That's over at topmusic.co/guitar032. Or you can find it on Spotify or any of the podcast apps where you're listening to this podcast. Just search for the Top Music Guitar Podcast. Hope you go and check that one out. That's it for the show this week. Thank you so much for being with us once again. Next week, we have a return guest, the wonderful Christina Whitlock, who this time is back. And some of you will know Christina from her own podcast, which we talk about next week. But next week's focus is actually on how she decided and what the outcome was of changing to group teaching format. So she's literally just done this. And when we recorded this episode, she was about 3 or 4 weeks into being a group piano teacher. And we're going to uncover all the trials and tribulations of that switch. So if that's something that you've considered before, and I know many of you have, then make sure you tune into that episode to find out exactly what Christina's done, how it's gone, and what she thinks of the decision as well. I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast. I can't wait to catch up with you again this time next week. Bye-bye, everyone. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our TopMusicPro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, TopMusicPro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham, and this is the Integrated Music Teaching Podcast, a production of Top Music. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.